वृंदावन धाम की जाय।
जय
मायापुर नवोद धाम की जाय।
जय
कमाई की जाय। यमुना
जय
माई की जाय। भक्ति देवी की जाय। तुलसी महारानी की जाय।
जय
समवेद गौर भक्त वृंद की जाय।
जय।
All glories to the assembled
हरे
devotees.
कृष्णा
Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees.
हरे
Hare.
कृष्णा
All glories to the assembled devotees.
हरे
Hare.
कृष्णा
All glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga.
हरे हरि बोल।
Hare Krishna. Thank you all for joining for our daily Srimad Bhagavatam study here at the ISKCON of Philadelphia. Today we are reading, studying, and discussing from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 7, text number 52. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
ओम नमो
ॐ नमो
भगवते
भगवते
वासुदेवाय।
वासुदेवाय।
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
ॐ
ओम
नमो
नमो
भगवते
भगवते
वासुदेवाय।
वासुदेवाय।
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
ओम
ॐ
नमो
नमो
भगवते
भगवते वासुदेवाय।
वासुदेवाय।
I'll recite the shloka 3 times, and then after that, anyone who is interested can also recite. Yata harau bhagavati nrunam bhaktir bhavishyati sarvatmanyakiladhare iti sankalpya varnaya. Yata harau bhagavati nrunam bhaktir bhavishyati sarvatmanyakiladhare iti sankalpya varnaya. यताहरौ भगवती नृणां भक्तिर्भविष्यति सर्वात्मन्याखिलाधारे इति संकल्प्य वर्णया. Please recite.
यथा हरौ भगवती नृणां भक्तिर्भविष्यति सर्वात्मन्यखिलाधारे इति संकल्प्य वर्णय।
हरे कृष्ण। यथा हरौ भगवती नृणां भक्तिर्भविष्यति सर्वत्मानेऽखिलाधारे इति सङ्कल्प्य वर्णय।
Hare
Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Please go ahead, Mataji.
No, Prabhu, you go.
Thank you. यथा हरौ भगवती नृणां भक्तिर्भविष्यति सर्वात्मानि अखिलाधारे इति संकल्पया भर्नया. हरे कृष्ण.
Hare Krishna. यथा हरौ भगवती निर्नाम भक्तिर्भविष्यति सर्वात्मन्य अखिलाधारे इति संकल्प्य वर्णया. हरे कृष्ण. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else would like to try?
यथा हरौ भगवती नृणां भक्तिर्भविष्यति सर्वात्मन्यखिलाधारे इति संकल्प्य वर्णय।
Hare Krishna. Okay, we'll go to the synonyms. Yatha, as much as. Harau, unto the personality of Godhead. Bhagavati, unto the Lord. Nranam, for human beings. Bhaktihi, devotional service. Bhavishyati, become enlightened. Sarva Atmani, the absolute whole. Akhila Adhare, unto the summum bonum. Ithi, thus. Sankalpya, by determination. Varnaya, describe. Translation: please describe the signs of Godhead with determination and in a manner by which it will be quite possible for the human being to develop transcendental devotional service unto the personality of Godhead Hari, the super soul of every living being and the Samam Bonam source of all energies. Purport: Srimad Bhagavatam is the philosophy of devotional service and the scientific presentation of man's relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prior to the age of Kali, there was no need for such a book of knowledge to know the Lord and his energies. But with the beginning of the age of Kali, human society gradually became influenced by four sinful principles, namely, illegitimate connection with women, intoxication, gambling, and unnecessary killing of animals. Because of these basic sinful acts, man gradually became forgetful of his eternal relation with God. Therefore, man became blind, so to speak, to his ultimate goal of life. The ultimate goal of life is not to pass a life of irresponsibility like the animals and indulge in a polished way in the four animal principles, namely eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating. For such a blind human society in the darkness of ignorance, Srimad Bhagavatam is the torchlight to see things in proper perspective. Therefore, it was necessary to describe the signs of God from the very beginning or from the very birth of the phenomenal world. As we have already explained, Srimad Bhagavatam is so scientifically presented that any sincere student of this great science will be able to understand the science of God simply by reading it with attention or simply by regularly hearing it from the bona fide speaker. Everyone is hankering after happiness in life. But in this age, the members of human society, blind as they are, do not have the proper vision that the personality of Godhead is the reservoir of all happiness because he is the ultimate source of everything. Janmadyasya yataha. Happiness is in complete perfection. Sorry, I'll read this again. Happiness in complete perfection without hindrance can be achieved only by our devotional relationship with Him. And it is only by His association that we can get free of distressful material existence. Even those who are after the enjoyment of this material world can also take shelter of the great science of Srimad Bhagavatam, and they will be successful at the end. Narada is therefore requested or ordered by his spiritual master to present this science with determination and in good plan. Narada was never advised to preach the principles of Bhagavatam to earn a livelihood. He was ordered by his spiritual master to take the matter very seriously in a missionary spirit. Jai. Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sapadantikam. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Thank you all again for joining, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak, primarily for my own purification. And I'll try to repeat what I have read and heard for the pleasure of the Lord and His devotees. But before I speak, I seek blessings from all of you and also seek your permission. Please. Hare Krishna. So yata haro bhagavati nunam bhaktir bhavishyati sarvatmanyakhiladhare iti sankalpya varnaya. So who is speaking here? Who is speaking to whom?
Brahma is speaking to Narada.
Yes, Brahma is speaking to Narada. Thank you, Mataji. And this is a very, very beautiful verse we will discuss today. And what is Brahma telling Narada? Please describe the signs of God. In several of these verses, we have been hearing this word signs of God, signs of God, signs of God, which means describe this Srimad Bhagavatam. The Srimad Bhagavatam is nothing but the signs of God. It has everything. The beginning of this Bhagavatam is that Janmadhyasya, everything, the source, the cause of everything is Krishna at Vasudeva. So that everybody can benefit, so everybody can develop devotional service to the Lord, which means simply by sincerely hearing and reading from Srimad Bhagavatam every day, we can develop loving devotional service to the Lord and receive His full mercy, and achieve the ultimate goal of our life. Isn't that so amazing? Yeah. So in the beginning, I'll just give a little background. In the beginning, when the universe is empty and the Supreme Lord expands Himself into this universe, and He fills half of the universe with what? With water. Yeah. And then
Water.
he lies down on it, or His expansion. Yeah. Then from the navel of His expansion comes what?
Brahma. Brahmaji.
Not yet.
Bra-
Lotus.
uh,
The
all the
lotus comes
lotus feet. Lotus
from the lotus comes Brahma. Yeah. Appears on that lotus. Yeah. And this Brahma, on the direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he starts performing austerity, right? Tapaha. And then, by the guidance of the Lord, he then begins the secondary creation. Yeah? You all remember this, right? Yes, Sarga and Visarga, primary creation and secondary creation. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead creates the empty universe. Then Brahma fills it with all the different forms of life and different influences. In the cause of this creation, he is also creating forgetfulness, right? And he has to create the influence of nescience so that the living entities can forget the absolute truth. Of course, it's, Lord Brahma afterwards is not happy about it, but he's duty bound to do it. At the same time, please understand, at the same time, he's very, very eager to share this transcendental knowledge with everybody. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, uh, he also heard the Srimad Bhagavatam, or what is referred to in these verses, like I said, as the signs of God. Whom did he hear from? The Lord Himself. Yesterday Mataji, Mother Archana Bhakti was wonderfully explaining about, how Brahma heard essentially in yesterday's verse. Srila Prabhupada explains, right? Half a dozen verses he says in the purport. Yeah. You see from in the 9th chapter of this canto, we'll be reading soon. We are at the end of the 7th chapter. In the 9th chapter, text 31 is when Lord actually starts speaking. 31 through 36, it's given. But 33, 34, 35, 36 are considered as the Chaturshloki Bhagavata. Srila Sridhar Swami, the first commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam, he explains this. For Brahma, for him to understand everything, he just needed, let's say, half a dozen verses. Yeah. But for living entities like me, I need 18. How many verses are there in the Bhagavatam?
18.
Huh?
Eh,
18,000
18.
verses.
18.
Yeah, some of them have multiple verses, but roughly, yeah. So even then, for a conditioned living entity like me, it is so difficult to understand. You see, in spite of so many commentaries and explanations. Huh? So Brahma wants to disseminate this transcendental knowledge. So in order to populate the universe, which was his responsibility, Brahma manifests different sons from the mind, from his mind, right? And all these sons are great sages. Among these sons, Narada was one of them, or he was the topmost, or the principal one, principal of the sages. Yeah, because he was into transcendence. Yeah. And in the beginning of this in the beginning of the fifth chapter of this canto, if you all remember, Narada meets Brahma, right? At Narada, he meets Brahma and he's worshipping Brahma, right? And what is he asking or what is he saying? Anybody remembers?
Just tell me what is about this.
Yeah, he's actually of course in some of the verses he was asking him questions, but in general he was also in couple of verses worshipping him and saying you are the greatest personality
Yeah.
because you are the origin of everything, right? Uh, although Narada is very realized, but for the benefit of all of us. So, and what does Brahma say? Does he say yes, yes, I am the origin?
No. He says
No.
He says,
Yeah, he says, wait a minute. I'm not the origin of
I'm not the
everything.
original.
Yes, rather, Supreme Personality of Godhead is the origin of everything. And he says, I am also dependent on him. Then he goes on describing the whole Srimad Bhagavatam. All this one, the narrative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It describes the entire creation about the Lord and his actions. Right? Uh, so, you all are following me, right? You all follow what I'm, yeah. So, and then in the first part of today's purport, Prabhupada writes, Srimad Bhagavatam is the philosophy of devotional service and the scientific presentation of man's relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the first two words of this shloka are, these two words, Harau and Bhagavati, are there, and both Prabhupada has translated unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, word Bhagavati means unto the Lord, means everything is description of that Bhagavan. So the description of Bhagavan or God is given in the scriptures, Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. And our business is to relate to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Right up front in the purport first line, Prabhupada is making it very clear. And the scientific presentation of man's relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because, yesterday also we heard in the in that fourth shlokas, in the ninth canto, ninth chapter, Mataji was explaining where Lord spoke to Brahma personally. What did we hear? Only then we are seeing things complete. Only when we see anything and everything in relationship to the Lord, then only then we see everything in totality. Because nothing exists without the Lord. Nothing is meaningful without the Lord. Right? Yesterday we were discussing this. Yeah. The first words of those four words that the Lord spoke, Lord, anybody remembers what was the first words explanation? Mataji had given wonderful explanation yesterday.
I think, no, I think, I'm not sure. God is present externally or internally, everywhere.
The first point was he is always existing. He existed before anything existed.
After.
He existed before anything else emanated from him. He existed while everything else was existing. And he continues to exist when everything is annihilated. Right? This was the first point. I always exist. Yeah. And then the second thing was what I was referring to, that anything of value, anything is valuable only when it is in relationship with the Supreme Personality of God. So if something is important or not important is based on its relationship with the Lord. Yeah, I'll give. Lord has explained very clearly in the Bhagavad Gita also what he likes, what he doesn't like. Right? Patram pushpam phalam toyam yome bhaktya prayachati tadaham bhakti partam ashnami prayatatmana. Patram pushpam phalam toyam. Offer me a leaf, a flower, a fruit, water. With devotion, yome bhakt. I will accept it. Very clearly he's saying. So we know what is valuable and what is not. So same Bhagavatam is also describing about the Supreme Lord, about how he expands himself into many forms and energies. And the three main energies that most of you know are the internal energy, the marginal energy, and the external energy, right? The internal energy is what? Means the spiritual world or activities of the spiritual world. Means what? Bhakti or devotional service. Yeah. And what is the external energy? The material world, right? And what is the marginal energy? You and I, entities, right? Right. So we are both spiritual and material, and we find, and the living entity finds both of these within his existence. And we see so much needs in this because I'm marginal energy, I'm pushing for, I'm pushed, or there's so much pressure of the mind, so much anger, tongue, genitals, belly, so much push is there. Birth, old age, disease, death, all these are there. We are not free. How many of us can, generally, if you see, I'm not talking about devotees who are here, but generally, how many people in this world can say, I'm free to live the way I want? And are they able to live freely? What do you think?
Don't think so.
No.
They can't.
Why? Because in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains Prakriti Kriyamanani Gunai Karmani Sarvasaha Ahankara Vimudatma Kartaham Iti Manyate. Yeah? Because yes, we have so many desires, we want to do so many things, but ultimately the script written by the Lord will determine what we are allowed to do and what we are not allowed to do. And Kala, time will determine this. It is not in my control. It's controlled by the material energy, which is under the control of the Lord. So you see, sometimes we are successful, sometimes we are surprised. Have you ever experienced where, you thought that there is no way this will happen and it happened? And sometimes you do put so much effort, you work so hard, everything you put in, but it doesn't
It
happen.
won't happen.
So we are in this material world depending on the arrangement of Krishna. Because it is he who is providing things to us through the arrangement, through this material energy. But spiritual life is not like that. We can be sure. Krishna says, if you engage in my devotional service, even in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, boldly declare, my dear Arjuna, Name bhaktya paranashyati, my devotee will never perish. Success will be guaranteed if we engage in devotional service. So the whole point is if I want to make my life successful, then I should use this mind, body, and intelligence in the service of Krishna. Then success is 100% guaranteed. But you see a lot of people, if you try to talk to them, they say, oh, I don't have time. Right? Have you ever heard this? Come on, be realistic. I don't have time for this ethereal kind of things. you know. But no matter how hard we endeavor, there's only so much we are going to get our share based on the script. And so many inconceivable things happen by the law of karma. Amazing things. We are like, how can it even, can't even imagine. We all experience in our lives also. I was just hearing this one story I want to share. This is so amazing, but at the same time, so um, helpful lesson. Um, this is a true story, a karmic story. This is happened in Spain. Once a man, he went to snorkeling in Spain in the deep ocean with his flippers, and nearby there was a forest. And when this person was in the deep ocean, apparently there was a forest fire in that forest. So a big helicopter came with a water tank, and they scooped him up. Along with him, they scooped him up and threw him in the fire. I know it sounds funny, but there was an article in the newspaper and they identified this man. You'll be surprised to hear that this man had a lobster restaurant. Just see the workings of karma. You know how lobsters are cooked?
Yeah.
You throw them in boiling water.
Hot,
Yes, they're often thrown alive in boiling
hot.
water.
How did that?
So same way he was thrown alive in fire with water. See how karma catches up in so many ways. I mean, we see this happens in the world, but because of my conditioning, it happens to all of us in many different ways. But it's very difficult to accept, right, when it comes to me individually. Oh, how can this happen? We argue, how can this happen to me?
Right.
Uh, Uh-huh. But the beauty of this Srimad Bhagavatam, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam and engaging in devotional services, uh, gradually as we are more and more situated in this transcendental knowledge, in this science of God, which is the emphasis of all these verses, then we get the strength to deal with the material energy, to tolerate. Otherwise, it's too much. It gets so overwhelming. That is why in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, the first thing he teaches is what? Dehinosmin yata dehe kaumaram yavanam jara tata dehantar praptis dhirastata. So he says, oh, you're not this body or the soul. And what is the next thing he teaches right after that? Anybody remembers? What is the next verse? Matra sparshastu kaunteya
Tasukmante.
itoshna sukha dukkada
Agamapai.
anityascha tam stitikshasva bharata. Just tolerate, right? So when we are gradually situated in transcendental knowledge, then we are not then we slowly become detached. When things go wrong, oh well, it happens. It will happen. That's the nature of this material world. Dukkha alayam shashvatam. Then we don't take it too serious. When something comes to an end, we then understand, right? Then everything slowly starts becoming relative. Not just pain and failures, success also becomes relative, right? Krishna says non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress, not just distress. Yeah, sukha, both are like the non-permanent appearance and disappearance of summer and winter season. Yeah, they arise from sense perception or sign of Bharata, one must tolerate. Yeah. So the real thing is our spiritual progress. So we gradually begin to see things as they are. Otherwise, as this verse is talking in the later part of the purport, You know, Srila Prabhupada, once he was in New York. I mean, not one, he was, as we know, he was in New York, and, he was speaking about cars in New York. Oh, he's saying these big, big American cars, they make deep noises. I was hearing that he was also imitating these noises. And they go here and there, so neck-breaking speed, but not going anywhere. So he was comparing this to our, to the conditioned living entities in this material world. So only when we make spiritual advancement, then we are making real progress. Otherwise, Brahmanda Brahmite, all the way from the Brahma's planet till the lowermost planet to it's a repeated birth, old age, disease, and death. We are just going up and down, like it is explained in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, like monkeys jumping from one branch to other branch on a tree. So changing one body to the other body. Good karma is taking me to heavenly planets, and bad karma, and I'm suffering for some time. And this is material existence continuously going on. So if we carefully have been studying the Srimad Bhagavatam, is slowly giving us knowledge of the material energy. And then we slowly begin to see it is not that important. Then the Bhagavatam gives us knowledge about the Supreme Personality of Godhead and how that is very, very important. Right? First, it tells you, hey, this is temporary, this is, you don't focus too much on it. And then it teaches you what is the real thing, the most important thing. So gradually our whole focus shifts. In the beginning, I'll share what happens is in the beginning of spiritual life, I carefully put one foot forward towards the spiritual side, right? But majority of the weight is on the other foot, towards on the material leg, yeah, in the beginning. So in the beginning we are interested in spiritual life, but still we are looking at it from a material perspective. We all agree in the beginning? Yes. The whole weight
Yes.
is on that material foot. Yeah. So, but then gradually we pray to Krishna, please help me, Krishna, please help me. This is too much. I can't handle this. This is when still the weight is on the material foot. But with time, the weight gradually shifts to that spiritual leg. And then gradually the material world looks less important, temporary, and we can forget about tolerating. We can also slowly start laughing about all the problems. Yeah. And we gradually move forward and transfer that weight to the spiritual foot. And once that weight is on the spiritual foot, then real happiness is there. And that is the reality. That means we are in the spiritual world. No matter where we are always engaged in bhakti. It doesn't matter. But in the material world, engaging in these material activities, we are not really there. Our spiritual nature, our original identity is covered by this cloud. So, I was hearing to this Harishauri Prabhu, one of Prabhupada's initial disciples, and who was his personal servant for several months. With Prabhupada, I think for 16, 17 months, he was personal servant. He was explaining how Prabhupada uh, um, had this kind of spiritual consciousness and how so tolerant he was and how unaffected he was by the material things. He was so focused on Krishna. He did not identify so much with the material world. And the example he gives is once, and this is very nice, and we can relate. once he noticed that Srila Prabhupada had a swollen cheek one day. So he asked Srila Prabhupada, do you have a toothache? And Prabhupada said, yes, some discomfort. That's all. He never brought that up again. I remember when I had a toothache. For me, every other minute I was suffering and thinking about that only. Not only me, in my family around, everybody is, I was talking about that. Oh, my tooth hurts, my tooth hurts. Like this, constantly. The whole world becomes the tooth. The mind is focused on the tooth. And immediately, what do I want? A pain reliever, right? A painkiller to relieve. And not only when we want sympathy from so many people, everybody needs to give us that comfort. Oh, it's okay, you'll be fine. So much. But Prabhupada, didn't take any painkillers. Can we imagine? It's inconceivable. Because he was so absorbed in the spiritual world. The whole point here is the Bhagavatam is gradually teaching us is waking us to that consciousness, to that kind of vision, the vision of the spiritual world, the spiritual reality. So it's not just a book. The Bhagavatam is not just a book. It gives us an outlook. Like Prabhupada writes in this purport, in this age of Kali, because people are so degraded, and they are, all the four regulative principles are broken. And Vyasadeva could envision this. If you all remember in the beginning of Kali, he could foresee, because he had Trikala Drishti. It's past, present, and future. So he could foresee the consciousness, Manda Buddhi, of the living entities in this Kali Yuga. So he gave us in this written form. But previously it was all in spoken, verbal, right? And so he described in detail this eternal personality of Godhead. And this chapter is titled what? Anybody remembers? What is the title of this chapter? This chapter 7. Scheduled incarnations of the Lord. Yes. Okay. So many incarnations, again and again the Lord is coming in different forms to teach, to teach all of us. And you cannot, the other important point this verse is teaching is, you cannot, with our own endeavor and intellect, we cannot capture or understand this absolute truth. No. Even the biggest of the biggest philosophers miss it. No one can conceive the absolute truth, Krishna, because he goes beyond our imagination. We cannot figure it out. And the Bhagavatam reveals this process. What is it? Right there in the upfront, it's explained. Only by devotional service can we understand the summum bonum of everything. Tad viddhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadeshyanti te gnanam gnaninas tattvadarshina. By inquiring submissively and pariprashnena seva, by performing devotional service, by serving, then we attract the mercy of the Lord through our service. Then the Lord will reveal it to us. Yeah. Otherwise, we can't conquer Krishna like in this material world. Uh, um, Unlike the material knowledge and what we see in this material world, the Bhagavatam is totally different. Uh, uh, Everything is based on the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And our whole attitude has to change. In the material world, it's all about trying to become more and more powerful, right? The more degrees and more sharp your mind is. But to receive this knowledge, this science of God, it is, instead of becoming more and more powerful, one has to become more and more dependent. Humility and admitting that I am very, very, very insignificant. The more we become dependent and the more we realize I am insignificant, the more we will receive the mercy of the Lord. It's not easy, but that is the way of Srimad Bhagavatam. Only then we can see. The more humble we become, the more we understand, and the more we see things as they are. Yeah. And this verse is also talking the purport about how people are, such a blind human society in the darkness of ignorance. And this is very, very important point. One of the 4 defects that we have is imperfect senses, right? You all are following? Yeah. One of the 4 defects is imperfect senses. And because of my imperfect senses, I'm committing so many mistakes and I keep blowing it again and again. You look back, life is nothing but a chain of mistakes. Again and again and again and again. And when we finally get to the point where I admit that my life actually was or is an endless chain of mistakes, and I become really truthful and humble, then we can take shelter of Krishna. And Srimad Bhagavatam brings about that transformation in our mentality. It gradually brings us to that point of humility and service. And simultaneously, while that is happening, it simultaneously introduces us to more and more about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we start learning how to become a servant. Yeah. So, why this is important is, from the first through 9 cantos, when we develop this mood and attitude, by the time we get to the 10th canto, I'm talking to myself, the hope and the prayer is that I become a little humble so that I can appreciate the glories of the Supreme Lord, which are so elaborately discussed in the 10th canto. Yeah. So this is very important. And no matter what we try to do, as we read, in the beginning, we will not find happiness in this life if we are doing anything minus Krishna. Because right up front in the Bhagavatam also it is discussed, Janmadhyasya yataha, that Krishna is the origin of everything, is the reservoir of all happiness, is the ultimate source of everything. And he can only achieve uninterrupted, complete happiness only by in our devotional relationship with the Lord. Otherwise, it's just it's a stressful material existence. Yeah. And Prabhupada gives wonderful explanation of this first words from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Like, like, on the Sunday feast, we were hearing Vishnu Gada Prabhuji was explaining so wonderfully, how people have different theories about the cause of everything, right? And many scientists claim life comes from matter. But 5,000 years ago, Vyasadeva has compiled all this Srimad Bhagavatam. It's very clearly discussed. The origin of life is a person. It's not matter, it's life. And that is Vasudeva, Krishna. And Prabhupada gives one personal example when he is speaking on this words from the first canto, first chapter, first text of the Srimad Bhagavatam. He says, if I am if Prabhupada is saying here, if I am taken as the origin of this Krishna consciousness movement, that means, it's very nice, please listen. If I am taken as the origin of this Krishna consciousness movement, that means I know everything directly and indirectly of all this movement. If I do not know directly or indirectly everything of this movement, then I cannot be called the founder Acharya. So the point is, and as soon as the origin becomes a knower, he can't be dead matter, his life. So dull matter cannot be the knower of everything. Prabhupada gives this very nice example. And also abhigna, that word is used, means he's cognizant, the original and source of everything. He has his own brain. He knows. He has the power of all knowledge. Everything is there. Yeah. Uh, and Prabhupada goes on to give some wonderful examples, like a microphone. Microphone is a combination of, some metal and wires, or sometimes some plastic on the outside. But they have been put together. And if something breaks apart, what do? You have to go to the person who put it together, because he knows directly, indirectly the composition of that microphone and he can fix it. Same way, Krishna is the knower directly, indirectly of everything. He's the original source of everything, and he knows everything perfectly. Yeah, it's very important to remember. And the other thing is, people ask, oh, if everybody has a source, then God has a source. You and I have a father, so God also has a father? No. That's why he is Aja, unborn. He is not begotten by any father. Advaitam Achyutam. Anadim Anantarupam. He's Adi. Adi means he's the original source of everything. Therefore, Anadiradir Govinda. Anadi means he is beginning without any source. But everybody else he's the source for everybody and everything. Yeah. So it's very important. Uh, and then I'll just conclude with this last point, which is also very powerful, of the purport. Narada is therefore requested or ordered by his spiritual master to present this science with determination and in good plan. Narada was never advised to preach the principles of Bhagavatam to earn a livelihood. He was ordered by his spiritual master to take the matter very seriously in a missionary spirit. Yeah. So a couple of points. One is, where we have been hearing many times not to hear. We have heard many times not to hear from professional speakers. you know uh, we have to hear from authorized sources in a parampara, and ours is the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, and the introduction of the Bhagavad Gita has this parampara. So we hear this knowledge in this parampara system, uh, and then we share this knowledge with others. That's why you see Narada is always traveling, right? Everywhere he's traveling to just teach the message of Godhead to everybody. Unlike what sometimes is portrayed in some Indian movies, where Narada is instigating people or some trouble. No, he's sharing. In fact, I'll just share one short story that I heard many, many years back, from a devotee. So one day, Narada Muni goes to a house, and there is a young, about 18, 19-year-old boy. So Narada Muni goes to the house, and this boy recognizes uh, the Lord. Recognizes Narada Muni and says, Narada Muni ji, please, please come, welcome, welcome. And then Narada Muni says, Kailash is his name. Sorry, I remember now. Has anybody heard this story?
Yes, Prabhu. Several
Okay.
times. Yeah.
Would you like to share, Prabhu, or should I share?
Prabhu, you continue. Thank you.
You're welcome, Prabhu, if you would like to. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but
No. So if you want, I can share that Kailash was the guy, he was so much materialistic, with the involved with all these material things. And so Narad Muni came to him several times. First time he said, I'm going to welcome to Lok, you want to come with me, you can come with me. So he said, no, Narad Muni, I'm very busy right now with this thing, that thing, all the material things. So he said, you go next time, I will be ready. And he was waiting probably his sons to get married. Then his sons got married, and then his grandson born. So Narad Muni comes again and he say, Kailash, you want to come now? And he say, no, let my grandson, get a little older, let him go to school and let me celebrate his birthday and all those things. So again, Narad Muni comes third time, and he was graduating from the college. Narad Muni say, now you come with me, your grandson is older. Then he said, no, I want to see his son also, my great grandson. So he still wanted to wait for that, and he didn't go. Then after that, that Narad Muni comes again, and she said, Kailash, you want to go now? And Kailash was not there. He probably died. And there was a dog barking there. So then Narad Muni could understand that this dog is the same Kailash. So he talked to him in the language of the dog, and he said that Narad Muni asked, Kailash, what happened? You didn't go with me, you could have gone with me. Now you are in the form of dog, so you want to come now? And he said that my sons, sometimes forget to clock the door in the night time, and they keep the door open and all. So these things happen, and that's what I'm guarding the door. And later on, next time Narad Muni comes, and that Kailash was in the form of a snake, and he was guarding the money. So Narad Muni saw the snake, in the behind the house, and he told the Kailash that, see what happened to you, now you are in this degraded form of the life, and you should have gone. And still in the form of snake also, he didn't want it to go. So Narad Muni said that there is nothing, for him, he can do. So he told his sons, that there is a snake behind the house, So all the sons came with the sticks, and they beat him up and they killed him, So this is the end of this materialistic people, So he could have understood that Narad Muni came so many times and told me the proper way. I could have gone to Lord, and then. So this story shows how the materialistic people, suffer and do not want to give up this material world. So it's our mistake. Like we are holding the pole, and saying that, oh, the pole is not leaving me alone. It's not the pole, it's me, who is holding the pole. So that is the story.
wonderful, Prabhu. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you. So, yes, it's the attachments that keep us strongly to this material world. And, we see Narada Muni, many such pastimes are there. I shared last time about the cobbler and the Brahmana also, right? Couple of weeks back. So he's always preaching and sharing the message, going up and down, And he was, if you think about it, was the son of a maid servant, just by the association of the four transcendentalists, he got perfected. And then, he could transcend this material world. No visa required, visa-free travel, not just within this material world, but anywhere and everywhere. He can go to to Ravana's place, he can go to Krishna, he can come to the material world, everywhere. Yeah. But you see how Brahma instructed Narada, and then Narada instructed Vyasa, then Vyasadeva instructed Sukadev Goswami. Yeah, Sukadev Goswami spoke to Parikshit Maharaj, and then Suta Goswami was also there. And then we can see how this knowledge is, and we are so fortunate to have this Srimad Bhagavatam in the book form. And in fact, if I recall correctly, the first canto, third chapter, text 40, or the third chapter is Krishna, the source of all incarnations. In that it's discussed, it's we should worship it like deity form. This is the literary incarnation of the Lord. There's no difference between Krishna and Srimad Bhagavatam. So these were a few points that I wanted to share today. Thank you so much for the wonderful opportunity to read and share from Srimad Bhagavatam, which personally I have immensely benefited over the years from the Srimad Bhagavatam. And I'm very grateful to all the devotees for helping me to develop a little bit taste for reading and hearing from Srimad Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna. Thank you. I beg for forgiveness if I've made any mistakes, and I humbly request the senior Vaishnavas on the call to please add and or correct. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhu. The nice examples, nice class, and all the slokas you were making me remember slokas mostly. Thank you very much for that. And the story Kaivalya Prabhu said, that is very good. See, that's true. That's what in the North Indian people always say, Jo kal karna hai, so aaj karo. Means whatever you want to do tomorrow, no, don't do that. Today, we do it today. So that's what that dog, what's his name? I don't know. Kailash. He didn't go, so he should have done on the spot. That's what we always postpone most of things. And no, we'll do it tomorrow. So that attitude, especially in the spiritual thing, whatever we are listening, whatever we are doing, that is a practical experience. I'm feeling now more and more that I shouldn't be postponing anything. We don't know what is our life is tomorrow. So that we should finish it that today itself. That's what more and more my life is telling me. Thank you, Prabhu.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing, Mataji. Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. Any reflections, questions, comments? If not, we can end the class.
It's nice class, Prabhuji. Very nice. Very nice to hear from you. And thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Very nice class, and really I enjoyed it, and not many important points, and very good, like things to go to Krishna consciousness, advance in Krishna consciousness. So thank you very much for nice class. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Kaivalya Prabhu. Thank you for sharing that story. When I hear from devotees like you, then it is more impactful for me. So thank you for sharing that story of Kailash.
That's true. Hearing from devotees, that makes a lot of impact. We can never forget that.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you, everybody, for joining. And we'll continue tomorrow with the last text of this chapter, text 53. It's another beautiful verse. I don't know who is scheduled to speak, but please join, and we'll continue for Srimad Bhagavatam study tomorrow. Thank you all for joining. Very grateful. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vancha
Vancha kalpatarabhyasya kripasindhya
Pitanam Pavan
Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Arantakoti Vaishnavrinda ki jai.
Jai. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Tomorrow, I think Chaitanya Charitamrita, no?
Oh, yes. Sorry, I forgot. Yes, you're right. Thursday. I'm sorry.
Wednesday. Tomorrow is Thursday.